Hello, Tungsten Miner here. Today I'm going to do a Let's Play video about Ad Astra, and the focus for this video is going to be how do you find your way around? So as I switch myself to my own perspective, you can see on my screen the HUD has nothing. There's no minimap, there's no coordinates, there's no biome reading, there's no time, there's none of that. And on a lot of mod packs, you'll have something like Zero's minimap or journey map or some other kind of mod that adds all of those things in the corner of your screen somewhere. But here, we've got nothing more than the normal vanilla indicators. So how do you find your way around? Well, one answer to that is we make a lot of roads, and you can see this is the end of the road, so to speak, in my little rocket base here. And this extends out into the world, and we'll actually take a little walk later on and look at some of the signs and things. But what I wanted to start with is actually what's in this chest right here. This contains a bunch of tools that come from a bunch of different mods. That is what we use for getting around. So I'm going to start with the simplest one. This is actually just the regular compass from ordinary vanilla Minecraft. And when I put it in my inventory, and it can be anywhere in my inventory, you can look in the top left corner of my screen and see that I now have a display of my XY coordinates and my current heading. So that's the first thing, is you can actually figure out your coordinates. And because Ad Astra relies on having these things, and of course you get yourself terribly lost without them, the recipe for this guy has been simplified. Basically any metal with an iron nugget in the center. So you don't need to find redstone, and you don't need to find any particular metal. This is because Ad Astra's ore distributions are such that every biome has kind of one or two metals that you'll find there at the most. And you might not find iron right away, and you might not find redstone right away. And in fact, those two things in Ad Astra are generally pretty far apart where you find them. So here we've got a little bit easier of a recipe. So as I put this back again, the next most useful thing that I have found is actually this biome analyzer. So you drop this in your inventory, and again, it can be anywhere in your inventory, and it shows you what biome you're in. And of course, because Ad Astra has things distributed in different biomes, knowing which biome you're in is particularly important. This really comes into play when you're mining. So when you're deep down underground, you don't have as many indicators as to what biome you're in, right? You can see that's obviously mesa biome over here. This is a forest biome over there. I'm actually standing in a plains biome right now. But when you're underground, of course, you can't tell that so easily. And if you're mining for a certain ore, you'll want to have this. And I'll go and talk about that a little bit later when I do a video on mining. Next up, as far as usefulness, is the depth meter. And again, I drop this in my inventory, and it shows me my Y coordinate. So when I combine that with my waypoint compass, I can now get my 3 coordinates, just like I normally would. So I will toss that over there, toss that over there. The next thing that I want to talk about is this waypoint compass. And unfortunately, they're named the same thing because Information Accessories, which adds these things, renames it. And I haven't renamed it back again. But the waypoint compass comes from Bibliocraft. And the way this works, you'll notice as I turn my character, the dial turns to point to a specific location. And if I follow this compass, it's going to, there we go. It's over there somewhere. Oh, right over there. So this spot apparently is where I set this compass. And I do that by shift right clicking, and I can give it a name, and I can change the location. So let's say, for example, I wanted to change the location of this one to being right here on my front porch. Shift right click, current location, home. I'm going to change this to rocket base and accept. And now the compass is always going to point to that spot on my front porch. So this thing is dead useful, and I mean dead useful because if I press the tilde key, I get my death history, and it shows me my last death location, which apparently was somewhere near the spawn. and I can see what items I had at the time. And of course, I've already recollected these items, so they're no longer sitting over there. We'll talk about the corpse mod a little while, and these are my other kind of death locations as I go back. So using this waypoint compass, I can shift right click and I can put in whatever coordinates I want, including my last death location. And so then I can find myself a way to go get to that location. The recipe for this thing I've modified, just adding some brass around a regular compass, and that gets you a waypoint compass. I actually keep a bunch of these different ones. So whenever I set up a location I want to be able to find again, like a mining cabin or something like that, I'll create myself another waypoint compass at that location and then leave it set to that location so that I can always find my way back again easily. This is especially true when you're flying. And when I talk about my aircraft and the vehicles, we'll talk about that a bit more. The next most useful thing, and probably the most useful thing, is actually this antique atlas. So right away you can see I have an extension installed, Atlas Extras, I believe, which adds this as a mini-map. So as I walk around, it follows where I go. So I've always got a little bit of a sense of where I'm at. And if I either right-click with the item or I just press the M key, which is what I've got bound to, I get a larger version of the map. And I can zoom out and I can zoom in. You can see I've been setting up Signpost. This is part of the Signpost mod. It automatically noticed where I had my nether portal placed. It automatically notices where there's a village and the waypoint that the villages spawn with automatically. Also part of the Signpost mod. And it knows kind of what different biomes are available. And you have to learn to read these things, but as you walk around the world and you notice, hey, I'm in this biome and I see this kind of pattern or decoration, you can pretty quickly get a handle on like, oh, okay, this means plains and that means forest, that means mesa. This is kind of savanna mountains all through here. The one thing that's a little deceptive is that while this looks like mesa, it's not actually the tall mesa plateaus, even though it kind of looks like it should be. It's just the low sandy mesa. And then, of course, down here is desert. This is desert hills. You get a pretty good sense of things. You can also put your own markers. So I've been keeping track of where I found oil sands, which you can use to turn into fuel for your vehicles. And so I've been marking those as I find them. And this is super, super handy. You can hide your markers and show them again, delete markers, add markers. And when you export this image, it actually generates an image of everywhere you've ever explored, which as I zoom out, that's the farthest I can go, you can see is quite a lot. But what I get as the picture, actually I don't want that marker, I'll give her that one. What you get as the picture is actually the most zoomed in version of it, pixel by pixel, so roughly like this, as an image. And the one that I have is now, I don't know, 10,000 pixels tall by 6,000 pixels wide or something. It's quite large. If I want, I can zoom back to my own player here. And so then you can look over your map and you can share it with your friends that are on the same server and so on. Really, really helpful. And of course, this is how you mostly get around in the world of Ad Astra. The recipe for this guy, actually I can't get the recipe this way because this is a special version that's already been turned into a book. But if I look at the recipe for the empty Antique Atlas, it's just a book and a compass. I very deliberately made almost all the recipes for these navigational instruments as simple as possible so that they're accessible to players early on in the game. Let's take a little nap here. Playing on the server, so I can't just set it not to do the daylight cycle. All right, let's talk about, drop this one back in here. The rest of these I have found less useful. So the sextant tells you what phase of the moon it is, which I suppose you might want to know. I've definitely found as I'm exploring the moon, knowing what moon phase you're in so that you can tell how much light you're going to have, that actually is pretty handy. Slime compass tells you whether or not you're in a slime chunk. Looks like I currently am. Yep, walked out of it, walked back into it. Calendar tells you the current day and year, which, again, not super useful, but it's one of the things that you might want to know. And then finally, this stopwatch tells you how fast you're moving. So you can see I'm now moving in the X direction at a pretty good clip, and then not. And now backwards, and now not. One thing that's kind of curious is that these grass paths, I have a mod installed that makes it so that you go faster on a grass path than not on a grass path. So you can see that Z speed changes a bit. I'm not sure what the units are in this. I have made a couple of guesses and then proved to myself wrong. So I haven't really found a lot of usefulness in it. On top of that, if you're on a horse, it doesn't give you the same measurement that you'd expect. It looks like, according to this, you're going a lot slower, but not 0. So I'm not sure what it's measuring. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Not all of them are equally useful. When I start a world, I generally make the waypoint compass, or just regular compass first, and then I make myself an antique atlas, and then I'll make myself one or more waypoint compasses to get to the important places in the world, and then the biome analyzer, and then the depth meter. And honestly, if I weren't doing a demo video, I probably wouldn't bother about any of the rest of these things because I don't really use them ever. So this is the sequence of tools that I make for myself. Again, you'll need any kind of metal at all, plus an iron nugget for your compass. Antique atlas, you just need a book and a compass. Waypoint compass, you need some brass, which is just copper and zinc. Biome analyzer, you need just copper and redstone, so now you're actually needing to travel a bit to find that redstone. And then the depth meter is usually the last one because you need both lead, which is found very far to the north in icy biomes, and redstone, which is found quite far to the south in savanna biomes. So this is actually a difficult item to make. And hopefully you're playing with other players and you can split up, one go north and one go south, and that way you can trade and get the resources you need to make these things easily. And that is kind of it for the instruments. One last thing to go talk about is the signage. So I'm going to go back here and grab a sign tool. That's what that is. And we're going to run out into the world here and go take a peek at some signs. Grab a saddle, grab a horse, who's already saddled. And we're going to take a little walk out of the compound here. Okay, so these roads are just plain grass paths. You just right-click with a shovel, and it turns dirt or grass into this grass path. And as I said before, you go a tiny bit faster if you make these. So these are slightly better than other things you might make in Ad Astra. And then here is a signpost. And this is just signpost. There we go. So the recipe for this guy is just 2 signs on a log, and there's a whole bunch of different variants. They all work pretty much the same way, just depends on what you have underneath them. You can also make a bigger version of this to add more text all in one go with this recipe. In any case, though, what you get are these signposts, and when you drop them in the world, they don't have any of these signs on them. So North Tunnel Redstone Mine. So I'll restore this one to its original state just by deleting the text. And that's what you get when you start. And then you can right click on it and you'll see it gives you your 2 options. So I'm going to say North Tunnel and Redstone Mine. I don't know why this one's white. It doesn't come out white in the end. And then you can use your signpost wrench. Left clicking turns it in this direction, which I guess would be clockwise if you're looking straight down on it. Right-clicking turns it in the opposite direction, and shift-left clicking flips the sign in opposite directions. So, of course, rotating it will just move this around to the back. So now it's pointing in the right direction, but now you can't read it from this side, which is not quite what I wanted. That gets it back again. So all of these work pretty much the same way. There is also, and I will, just for the sake of the video, give myself this guy, and then I'll toss it away again. When you right-click with this calibrated signpost wrench, so recipe for this one, just iron and sticks. Recipe for this one, add a compass. With a calibrated signpost wrench, you can still do the normal... oh, you can't. See, I'm wrong. I haven't used this tool, obviously. So I can do this, try and get it back where I want. But you notice it's not moving in quite the same way. So here I can say I want to point this directly at the origin, and it will give me the angle directly in that direction. So here I can point to any angle at all that I want. Say 290, off in that direction. Or I can tell it exactly what coordinates I want to point at. As you noticed, I never did make myself one of those. The reason is that mostly I keep my roads moving fairly straight. I think I might, yeah, look at that. All right, so I'm going to grab that again, and I'm going to set his angle back to 0. There we go. And then we'll get rid of that. Okay. Yeah, the reason is that I make my roads go straight because obviously Minecraft being blocky as it is, this is way easier than trying to figure out how to make a nice angled road that goes at a specific angle to a particular location. Instead, I just kind of make those little corners and things. So I actually do want my signs to just point along the direction of the road, not straight at whatever the thing was. But you could well imagine that you'd want the other kind if you're doing something that isn't quite so road-oriented. And so here with these signs, the way that I've chosen to make them, because of course there's a lot of destinations, is I always pick the furthest away location here and the furthest away location here. So now I've got my 2 endpoints. And then I pick the ends of the road that you might have as destinations. So the redstone mine is at the end of one little branch of the road. So that serves as kind of one of the terminuses. And the same with the rocket base, right? This is the end of that little segment of road. And then I pick what I think are the most interesting ones that will be next along the road, or something that's just particularly important. So if we go down the road this way a bit, we'll get to the next sign, which just points straight at the nether portal, which is off there in that little cave. And if we keep going, we'll get to another little signpost, which has kind of the same stuff on it, right? It has the town, which is the furthest thing away. It has the North Tunnel, which is the furthest thing away. The gold mine, which is close. The redstone mine, which is the only thing down that little stretch of road now. Rocket base and nether portal. Nether portal being closest and that being in between. So I've got these little signposts all over the area that I've settled, pacified, whatever you want to call it. And that way, when I'm getting around and not quite remembering which road goes where, or when people come and visit, they can find their way around too. So that's it for Ad Astra navigation. Got that box full of different tools. Some of them more useful than others. Obviously, you can make roads of one kind or another. This grass path gives you a little bit of a speed boost. If you use concrete, just regular vanilla concrete, that gives you a slightly larger boost in speed. And if you use reinforced concrete from Railcraft, that gives you an even larger boost. So you can make your roads actually push you along really quite fast. In addition to having all of your navigation tools, of course, that helps you find your way around too. And then, of course, there are the signposts that you can put up to help people figure out where all your different roads are going. And that is it for now. That is Ad Astra navigation. Talk to you later.